So of course I'm going to go ahead and use our serrated blade because our serrated blade which is basically the knife with the teeth on it. And it's basically used for items that are softer in tissue, all right? So our items like our bread and our tomatoes, okay? Now bruschetta basically originated in Italy around the 15th century, and essentially it comes from the Italian word bruciare, which essentially means to toast or to burn. And so that's really what we're going to do with our bread today. Once I go ahead and chop this up into slivers, we're going to go ahead and toast them for about 5 to 10 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. And then we'll rub on a little bit of olive oil, and then we'll add our tomato, onion, parsley, basil mixture, and then we'll throw a little bit of feta cheese on there. And the sweetness really comes from that balsamic glaze and the tomatoes, which actually at the same time going to add a bit of acidity with that balsamic vinegar. So it's going to be great. It's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and slice these into nice, let's see, there we go. Nice little slivers, and so about, I want to say half an inch thick. Not too thick. All right, because again, we want these to toast slightly on the outside and to not be so thick that the butter garlic mixture that we're going to use doesn't go through it, but also not so thin that it burns to a potato chip crisp. Not very fun. All right. So see that there? We want this one, not this one. All right, let's keep it going. I'm gonna tuck my fingers out the way, make sure they're not causing any problems, and then boom. Next thing that we're going to do, now that we have gone ahead and chopped up our bread pieces that we're going to use for our bruschetta, we are going to now work on our toppings. So that will be our white onion, our red, nicely ripened tomato, and then of course our 2 cloves of garlic. All right, now with garlic, you could sit there and you could peel off the outer layers of it, but it kind of takes a bit of time, and it also makes your fingers sting. So what I'm going to do is I have a nice little mason jar here. I'm going to pop that open. We're going to stick our cloves of garlic in there. Close the lid up nice and tight. Get a nice as firm a grip as you can. If you need to, you can use a wet paper towel, kind of adds a little bit of grip on there, or just a regular hand towel. And we're just going to go ahead and shake this up. And what that's going to do is that the friction is going to knock off the peels right off those garlic cloves. And so it's actually going to make it a little easier. And again, it's a nice stress reliever. So I'm going to show you this now. Little garlic cloves in there. And then I'm going to shake it up and show you what they look like afterwards. And again, this is a very, very easy way of getting the shells or outer peeling right off those garlic cloves. All right, popping that open. Moment of truth, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and collect my cloves. And as you can see, I have my cloves here and my peels very much empty and still inside the jar. So now this can actually get dumped in the trash. I love an easy cleanup. And I can go ahead and mince, which just is a fancy way of saying finely chopped into very, very tiny pieces, my 2 garlic cloves. So let's go ahead and tuck our fingers out the way and use our chef's knife here, which is typically about an 8 to 10 inch blade that you usually see cooks or just anyone really using in the kitchen. It's a very popular blade, and it allows you to cook and prepare most items in your kitchen. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and chop that up, and we're just gonna mince that garlic really finely, because again, we're going to be using that olive oil and that garlic to make our nice topping for our bread that we had earlier. Not really sure why I forgot the word bread, but we're gonna keep it moving. And again, to mince is just to finely chop. So you want these into tiny, itty bitty pieces. And you want consistent pieces as well. So no tiny pieces and then big lumps here and there. You want to go ahead and chop those nice and evenly. Alright, so keep scooping it. Careful not to cut your fingers. One of the most common accidents in the kitchen are cuts. Can you guess what the other one is? Give you a hint. It has a lot to do with your very hot pots and pans and your oven. It starts with a B. That would be burns. So 2 most common accidents in the kitchen are cuts and burns. And so we want to keep our fingers out the way and always use some sort of protection for your cooking items, pots, pans, things of that nature, just to make sure that you are not about to burn yourself. All right, so let's see. We've gone ahead and chopped up our garlic, and so now we're gonna add that to a nice small bowl. We're gonna set that to the side now. We've minced our garlic, and I'm gonna show you in just a second what minced garlic looks like. Okay. I think they're good rinse. They're gonna smell like garlic for a while. You can always wear gloves for this also. So keep that in mind if you don't want your fingers to stink for days. All right, and then we have our minced garlic. So very fine, consistent pieces. Awesome. Now the next thing we're gonna do, okay, is go ahead and chop our onion. And of course we wanna get rid of that outer layer. Now the thing about onions is that they contain quite a bit of sulfuric acid. And with that acid, that's where you get the crying and things like that. So you've got 2 options. You can either leave this bad boy in the fridge and use a very sharp knife, because using dull knives actually cause more surface, or they cause more surface area to be broken when you are slicing through the item with your knife. You have to put down more pressure when you're using a dull knife. And so that actually releases a lot more of the acid and actually makes you cry more. So don't use a dull knife. It's dangerous and it makes you cry more when you're chopping onions. That's not fun. So go ahead and either leave this in the refrigerator for about an hour and then cut it, or what you can also do is rinse it under cold water like we're about to do. And that's gonna wash away some of that acid and reduce my chances of bawling my eyes out in front of you on screen. And there's actually a little nifty trick that we're going to do with this onion in just a second. So we're gonna give it a nice rinse under cool water. And then we're going to create a flat surface because, again, we want to reduce our chances of cutting ourselves. So tucking our fingers out the way, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. So we have our roots here and then our stem here. We're going to go ahead and cut it in half. All right, so let's go ahead and get this guy out of the way because it's definitely going to make me cry. All right, and the next thing we want to do is give it a quick rinse under cold water again. Because now that we cut into that onion, we've gone ahead and reduced that acid. Or we've released that acid, and we want to make sure that we don't get that in our eyes. Or really anywhere. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that little bit of the stem at the end. So we want this gone. Right, rinse it. And just know that rinsing it under cold water is not going to reduce the flavor of the onions at all. Trust me, they are powerful enough. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and, keeping our roots intact, we don't want to cut those off yet. We're going to go ahead and slice, I would say, horizontally. That would be vertically. So we're going to slice vertically with our roots sitting at the top still intact, all right? So we're going to give it some nice vertical slices in there. And we're not going to cut all the way through. The reason being is because this is actually going to keep our onion, which has multiple layers. It's going to keep our onion intact, so while we're chopping, it's not going to have little bits flying all over the place and falling apart, because that makes it more dangerous when we're chopping it up, and also gives us those uneven pieces that don't cook just right. So keep those fingers tucked. All right, I'm going to give this a quick rinse under the water. No tears yet, so far so good. Keeping those fingers tucked. And again, that water is not going to reduce the flavor of our onions. They're strong enough. They'll survive. And you will have plenty to feed, and you will live to tell the tale without crying. All right, and now again, we're going to tuck our fingers, and just to kind of show you, so my roots are still, there she is. My roots are still intact, and I've gone ahead and cut vertically. So as you can see, my onion, even though I'm holding it like this, really isn't falling apart too much. Actually, I can kind of slide everybody back in place. There she goes. And she's still together. And that's what you want, because it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to cut this up into small pieces. All right. So we're not necessarily going to mince it, but we're going to chop it into nice fine pieces, because we want that onion flavor, but we don't want it to override the entire appetizer, the entire food item, our bruschetta. All right. So just to kind of give you an idea, nice, small, even pieces. And I am feeling that acid now, guys. I hope I don't cry in front of you. All right, so here we go, almost there. And our recipe calls for 1/4 cup of finely diced white onion. And so I think I've gone ahead and I've gotten 1/4 cup in there. Yeah, 1/4 cup. And this onion, of course, can be baggied and saved for dinner, saved for lunch, saved for a salad, whatever it is that you'd like to use it for. I'm going to go ahead and give my hands a quick wash. Just a quick one. Because between the garlic and the onion, we're going to smell that for a bit. Again, you can always use gloves, though. All right. And let's go ahead and there she is. We'll pull out our patties and go ahead and save the rest of that onion. Because again, I could always use this later. We don't waste food in this house. That sounds like a banana bread, so I should probably go check on that. And in order for me to check on it, I could take a knife or a toothpick, stick it into the banana bread, lift it out, and if it looks like I've got a bunch of creamy batter on there, then it's not done. But if I put it in there and pull it out and it's completely dry, then it's all done. So, let's set that to the side and check in on our banana bread. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do, and I've gone ahead and checked that banana bread, and it did need just a couple more minutes, which is cool. 35 to 40 minutes. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and use our serrated blade and chop our tomato for our bruschetta. Because remember, the tomato is the star of the show. So we're going to create a flat surface, making sure we stay safe. And we can actually do the exact same thing that we did with the onion, or we could just cut straight through. And with most bruschetta, usually you remove the more moist part, the part with the seeds and things like that. You could also keep it in there, it's completely up to you. So we can remove the seeds. And then we just want to chop that into nicely small pieces, because remember, we want this to fit on our toast. Okay, so they can't be too big, otherwise we're just going to have about 2 or 3 pieces of tomatoes on there and not a whole lot of topping. And we want lots of topping. So we're going to go ahead and remove the seeds once more. And then we just have the nice firmer part of the fruit. And yes, tomatoes are technically fruit, but we consider them vegetables for so long that we just call them vegetables. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Removing our seeds. Just taking on that firm part of the tomato. And it's also going to create a really nice presentation once we're all done. And I'll check on that banana bread in just a minute. There we go. Just gonna keep chopping that. And you want to make sure, go ahead and get rid of that piece. So you want to make sure that you're getting this into nice, even bits, right? If they're uneven, that's okay too. Your stomach can't tell the difference. Now your party guests, them I'm not so sure about. But real friends don't make friends feel, well, yeah. Real friends don't make friends feel bad about having uneven tomatoes on their bruschetta. Best friends do though, so. All those seeds out of the way, and we definitely need more tomatoes. So I'm going to finish chopping this, then I'm going to go check that banana bread just one more time, and then we'll get to making the actual balsamic vinegary sauce, if you will, that's going to go on our tomatoes, on our little vegetable mixture, and then we're going to whip all that together and top off our toasted bread, which again goes in the oven at 350 for 4 to 5 minutes, right? Keep an eye on it. You don't want it to burn. Let me go ahead and finish chopping these guys. Ooh, I can smell that banana bread already. It is going to be yummy. And again, I'm going to keep my fingers tucked out of the way as much as possible because I don't want to lose a fingertip. Because I'm ready to dig in. So now that we've gone ahead and finished chopping up our 2 cups of our tomatoes, our diced tomatoes, we're going to go ahead and create basically our little vinaigrette, if you will. All right, so we're going to add in our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So that is 1, 2. And then our 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. So, 1, 2. And then, now you can chop this but I'm just going to go ahead and grip it with my fingers. I'm going to throw in some fresh parsley and some fresh basil, alright? And that's really, and let me show you this real quick before I continue, because this is actually pretty cool. So fresh herbs are really, really strong, and they pack a huge flavorful punch. Alright, so that is my fresh parsley that you're seeing there. And then of course I'll grab my basil next. Alright, ooh, that's a big one. Go ahead and set that down. Alright, and then that is my fresh basil, and it is very strong. Fresh basil there. Alright. So I'll actually just pull that out of there, because they gave me quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take my parsley and just pull it between my fingers, and that is going to get me all the leaves off without that stem. Right, and I'm just going to go ahead and give that a nice tear. Again, if you want more even pieces, you can chop it, but I'm just going to tear it with my fingers. Still gets the same results. But you want only about a teaspoon of that parsley, so 1 teaspoon. And again, these are fresh herbs, and so you don't want to use too many because they are very, very strong. Alright, and then I'm going to get my big old basil leaves. And these guys, because they're so big, we're going to go ahead and chop them. And I need about 5 of them, okay? So some for garnish, and some to go into my mixture. So that's 3, 4. Need some big ones. Alright, and 5. And then I'm just going to go ahead and set my basil to the side. Grab my cutting board. And let's just go ahead and lay these out flat first. And then we're just going to roll them up. Tuck our fingers out of the way. And then we'll go ahead and dice these up. And again, we don't need all this basil in the mixture. We just need enough for the inside of the mixture as well as for garnish, right? Alright, great job. So now we got our basil nice and chopped and set off to the side. Now the next thing we need to do is we're going to go ahead and add in our 1/4 teaspoon of salt, alright? So just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to do this over the sink because I don't want to add in too much. So that is that, and then alright, so that's plenty of salt. And again, we're just using a small amount, and then 1/8 teaspoon of garlic, which is really about a pinch. It's really a pinch, but for the sake of measuring, I'm going to use 1/8 teaspoon of garlic powder. And again, that's just going to add that punch of flavor, because that's what we want. We want flavor. We don't want huge amounts of salt or huge amounts of sugar. We want flavor. There, you're gonna go here. Alright, so we've added our olive oil, our white balsamic vinegar, our basil, our parsley. Actually, we're just using regular balsamic vinegar. Still gonna get good flavor. And then we got our basil, our parsley, our salt, and our garlic powder. And now we're just gonna whisk this together. Go ahead and blend those flavors. So we are blending this. And again, we're using regular balsamic vinegar. Again, we're still gonna get good flavor. So don't you worry. And if you're using white balsamic vinegar, just just be a different color. But again, still good for food. Alright. And now we're going to pour it over our veggies, which again was our minced garlic, our white onion, and our 2 cups of our diced tomatoes. Alright. I'm going to make sure we get all those fresh herbs out of there and into our mixture. And oh, it's smelling so good. Alright. And then, let's go ahead and get that nice and mixed. So I wish you guys could smell this because it smells wonderful. It smells so good, and even though you can't see her, my dog just walked in. She got really excited. All right. We're going to let that rest for just a little bit. So, now that everything is said and done and out of the oven, I went ahead and scooped on our topping for our bruschetta, and then I took some of our feta cheese here. So, a little bit of feta cheese. And I just went ahead and minced that up just a little more so it could fit nicely on top of our bruschetta. And I'm just going to show you this right here. So this just makes a great appetizer. So we have our bruschetta there. And then of course our nice, moist, and super healthy banana bread that came out so well. And of course we have our moment of truth, because I can't just ask you to make this stuff without trying it. I mean, so that banana bread is moist, it's flavorful, not dried out, jam-packed, full of flavor, super sweet as well, which is great because again it only has a very little amount of sugar and salt in it, so it's pretty flavorful considering we didn't add cups and cups of sugar, just a little extra banana. And again, super flavorful, super moist. Only took about 35 to 40 minutes to make. I did have to put it back in because it still was a little undone in the middle, but we're set now. Now, I'm going to try the bruschetta next. Alright. It is absolutely delicious. That fresh, ripened tomato adds a little bit of tang to it. Well, that vinegar really just adds a punch of flavor. And of course you have just a wisp of garlic in there. And if you like, you can add a little balsamic glaze to the top for an extra bit of flavor and sweetness. So actually, let me just do that to all of them. Just gonna add a little drizzle on top of each of these guys. And since we added an ingredient, of course I have to take another bite, so. And it is absolutely delicious, everyone. So, this is a great way, again, of getting in that fiber that we talked about the last time. And it's also a great way of getting in your vegetables as well with that bruschetta. So definitely give it a try. And remember to always get in your 5 food groups, those grains, those dairy, that fruits, vegetables, as well as your protein, and to stay strong, eat healthy. Bye guys.